Chief Doucette, thanks for joining us. A real privilege to have you on our program.
Well, thanks.
You recently had a training drill for your officers with their new firearms, and I know it's about making it as real as you can and you know, what these officers deal with on the street. You do this several times a year. Serious business, no doubt.
Absolutely. We're training our officers 3 times a year and absolutely trying to be as realistic as possible. The old days of just standing in front of paper targets and shooting are over here, and it's been that way for several years.
It's pretty amazing when you look at the technology and all that you've got to help train these officers. But you use what's called simunition?
Yes, they're simunitions. It's actually FX marking cartridges, and it's just a very small plastic capsule that has a paint marker in it, and we actually play the role of bad guys, and the officers and the, quote, bad guys will go head-to-head in a firefight, and it's very realistic. And when you get hit with an FX marking cartridge, you know, it stings a little bit. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not too awfully bad, but it does sting, and you know you've been hit, and it makes it realistic, and it makes the officer stop and think if they're ever involved in a situation like that they need to stay down, take cover, and be cautious.
You know, I know when we were recently at the National Police Shooting Championships, and you talk to these police officers, they'll tell you cannot train enough. A lot of them had T-shirts that said "Train for Life," and this is what it's all about.
Absolutely, and you need to make it, like I said, as realistic as possible. I mean, we're moving and shooting, you know, getting down behind cover. You know, if an officer comes out from behind cover a little bit and, you know, they're not cognizant of what they're doing, you know, we will take a shot at them, and whether it's the elbow or the knee or what have you, just to make sure that they do stay down behind cover when necessary. And, you know, after the scenarios are over, we sit down and we talk about what could be done differently. And, you know, we praise them if they do well, and it's very clear if they did not do well because they're marked with FX marking cartridges.
Yeah, and it's true because I was reading under the simunition that if the officer doesn't respond the right way, as you said, they're in big trouble.
Well, we do that. I mean, you know, we make sure, you know, I'll give you a great example. We had an officer who, there was a gun on the dashboard. The officer reached in to get that, and we immediately grabbed that officer's hand. He was a newer officer, mm-hmm. Grabbed that officer's hand, held him, and reached for the revolver that was on the dash, and ended up shooting that officer with the simunitions, and you know, and he had to back away and return fire. So, I mean, the instructors take a beating also sometimes, but that's what it's all about, and it's to make sure that they respond. And we train our officers to never, ever give up. Never give up the fight. Doesn't matter if you've been hit or not, you need to stay in the fight, and that's the other realistic part about simunitions.
Yeah, and I mean, because you're talking about these officers day to day having to make these split-second decisions. And do you hear from the officers? Do they give you feedback about what a difference it's making this kind of training?
We do. You know, the emails come into myself and Sergeant Rowland, who's the other firearms instructor here, and you know, the officers absolutely love simunitions training because they find it to be very realistic, mm-hmm. and it's a lesson learned. You know, especially if they get hit with the cartridge. So, you know, it's very positive here. And you know, like I said, I mean, if you read the article, you know
yes.
that we're actually using cars. We're shooting into cars with live ammo after the simunitions training, and you know, we're doing building searches using simunitions, and it's all a real deal here, and that's to make sure that our officers are prepared for an encounter.
You know, I was talking about technology and all the improvements, and I know the firearms industry continues to do that all the time. And you, the 2 firearms you were able to buy with a grant, 2 of them were from Sig Sauer, and we all know that they really are the choice of law enforcement when it comes to firearms. What did you like about the firearms that you bought from them?
Well, we had SIG P229s prior to buying the SIG P220s. The only difference was our 229s did not have the rail system. And obviously with technology the way it is, when you have the rail system, we went ahead and purchased Streamlight flashlights, or weapons-mounted light systems, I guess is the technical word, and we have those mounted on all of the firearms. And then we purchased Safariland leather gear, and that way the flashlight stays right on the SIG P220 all the time. And our flashlights actually have strobe technology where we can disorient subjects using the strobes and not just a steady burn. So that's beneficial to the officers as well, to disorient a suspect that they're going to take into custody or potentially use deadly force against.
And I know you bought some Remington 12-gauge shotguns as well.
We did. We went ahead and bought Remington 870 12-gauge shotguns. I mean, clearly the choice of law enforcement. I mean, if you look around this country, you'll see that, a majority of departments have pump-action Remington 870 shotguns. They're very reliable. A lot of people don't realize that the law enforcement version has some different parts, and there's just a very reliable shotgun, and you can't go wrong with the Remington 870. And our guys, I mean, we do these drills with our officers, and you would think that some of these guys would complain the number of rounds that we have them shoot, my shoulder, but they do not complain at all. And again, we make it very realistic. We use the shotguns on a regular basis here, and it's important.
We get to see a lot of these firearms when we go to the SHOT Show. It's a whole different thing for your officers, though. But do they get to test these guns out before you actually purchase them?
We did. We went ahead and we got a couple of different guns before we chose the SIG P220 and the .45 caliber, and clearly the officers chose the SIG over the other firearms. And again, but we were very familiar with the SIGs because we had our 229s for about 9 years. So we left it up to the officers, and that's what they chose, and we were very comfortable with that decision. And SIG has been very supportive of us. We've had very few problems with our SIG arms weapons, and again, that's why we chose to go with them again.
I got to ask you though, because you volunteered, I'm sure you were one of the suspects, armed suspects. You were a bad guy for a change. Did you find yourself really getting caught up in the moment and what was going on?
I love it. I've been doing this since 1999, being a firearms instructor, and I teach at the Vermont Police Academy as well. I teach patrol procedures, and I'm right into this. Even though I'm 42 years old, I've been doing this job for almost 21 years, and I absolutely love it. And my whole thought process is, if I can teach someone something that's going to potentially save their life, then that's why I do this. And I am caught up in the moment. I'm a great role player. We laugh about it afterwards, and Sergeant Rowland is a great role player as well, and we love it, and the guys love it also.
I don't know what it takes to apply for these grants, but I'm sure that when you're looking at tough economic times across the country, it's not easy to always buy the best equipment and what you need for your officers, and I'm sure these grants, big help.
The grants are a huge help for us. I mean, we're a smaller police agency. Our operating budget's about $2.9 million, and as with most police agencies, most of that is benefits and salary. And we don't find, especially in these economic times, we don't find a lot of money out there that we can use from the town government. So these federal grants have been a huge asset to us. They allow for the training. They've helped us buy the weapons. They've helped us buy some ammunition. The town has picked up the cost of most of the ammunition. But and the simunitions, I mean, the town wants us to train, and I mean, we just didn't buy the simunition rounds. I mean, we've got all the protective equipment that goes with it, just so people don't get hurt. And having these federal grants has been a huge asset to the town. And
I'm sure doing this with your officers, it really is a booster in morale as well. I mean, and sharing information amongst themselves, because so many times, like I said, when we're at these police competitions, they'll tell you the best thing is to be able to share and exchange ideas and what works for them, and make suggestions.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and we get a lot of our ideas from the guy. Most of the officers here subscribe to Police Magazine and Law Officer, and we get a lot of our ideas about firearms training out of periodicals that we read, and also our visits. I mean, again, Sergeant Rowland and I both go to the Vermont Police Academy and teach there, and we get a lot of our ideas from other instructors. So sharing amongst instructors and sharing amongst officers is again, it's huge in this type of training.